All right, everybody, welcome back. We are going to be diving into PostgreSQL schemas today.
Ooh, schemas.
Schemas, yeah. I know databases can seem a little bit like, oh my gosh, overwhelming,
Yeah, they can.
but we're going to make this fun and easy to understand.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think? Where should we start? What are schemas?
Well, it's interesting how something that sounds so technical, like schemas, just boils down to something we all deal with, and that's organization.
Huh.
So just like you organize your files on your computer into folders,
Oh, yeah.
a schema is basically like a folder for your database objects.
So instead of like, my vacation photos folder,
Exactly.
that's all of my, customer data.
Exactly. And that could be one schema, right? So
Yeah.
within your database, you
Okay.
could have a customer schema that has all the tables and views and functions related to your customers.
Okay, so not just tables, but all kinds of stuff.
All sorts of database objects, all within that schema.
Oh, that's cool.
And then you can have a product schema
Okay.
to organize all your product information, and an order schema to manage your transactions, and so on and so forth.
Right. So instead of just this like giant messy room full of database stuff, you can sort of put things where they belong.
Categorize it, make it nice and tidy.
Oh, I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and this is especially useful when you have a large database, right?
I bet. I can only imagine.
Imagine a huge online store with millions of customers,
Right.
thousands of products.
Yeah.
Trying to manage all that data without schemas would be a nightmare.
Oh, totally.
It'd be like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
So schemas, they help us get organized, but what is a naming conflict?
Yeah, so think about it. You're building a complex application. You got hundreds of tables, maybe even more.
Yeah.
You got different teams working on different parts of the application.
Oh, so this is like a real world problem.
This is a real world problem.
Okay.
And without schemas, you might have two different teams accidentally create tables with the same name.
Ooh, no.
And then what happens?
Yeah. I mean, I guess things break.
Things break, data gets mixed up. It's a big mess.
Yeah.
Schemas prevent that by allowing you to group related tables together.
Okay.
So, the customer team, they can work in their customer schema.
Right.
The product team, they can work in their product schema, and there's no risk of them stepping on each other's toes.
So it's not just about like, keeping things tidy, but it can actually prevent real problems.
Exactly. It's essential for maintainability and scalability of your application.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's really good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about organization. We've talked about, preventing these naming conflicts. But how do schemas actually make a database more secure?
Well, it all comes down to access control.
Okay.
Schemas give you this fine-grained control over who can access what parts of your database.
Okay.
So you can specify which users or roles have permission to access which schemas and what they can do within those schemas.
Okay.
Can they just read the data? Can they write data? Can they create new objects? You get to decide.
So it's like, you're setting boundaries within the database to prevent unauthorized access.
Exactly. It's like having different levels of security clearance for different areas of your database.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, some users might have top secret clearance. They can access everything.
Okay.
Other users might only have access to certain schemas or even just certain tables within a schema.
Okay, that's making a lot of sense now. I'm curious, though, there was this mention of a public schema in the article.
Yeah, the public schema.
What is that all about?
So the public schema is kind of like the default schema in PostgreSQL.
Okay.
When you create a new database, everything gets stored in the public schema unless you explicitly specify a different schema.
Oh, so it's like just that one big folder
It's that one big folder where everything goes.
that anyone can get into.
Yeah, well, potentially, right.
Oh.
So that's why it's super important to restrict access to the public schema.
Okay, because it's like leaving all your files in one big folder.
Exactly. It's like leaving all your important files in a shared folder that anyone can access.
Which is probably not a great idea.
And not the best security practice.
No, especially if we're talking about a database.
Right.
So how do we restrict access to this public schema?
It's basically one line of code.
Wow.
And it says revoke create on schema public from public.
All right, so I'm not a coder, but I think I get the gist of that.
Basically what it's saying is, hey, no one's allowed to create new objects in the public schema without specific permission.
Oh, okay.
It's a small change, but it makes a huge difference for your database security.
PostgreSQL 15 and later versions, they actually apply this restriction by default.
Yes, they do.
So that's awesome.
It's great to see them making those security improvements out of the box.
So yeah, we don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just like done for us.
Exactly. One less thing to worry about.
Okay, so restricting the public schema, That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what about, controlling access to other schemas within the database?
Right. So once you've kind of locked down the public schema,
Right.
you want to make sure that you're controlling access to all the other schemas you create as well.
Right.
And PostgreSQL gives you a lot of flexibility there.
Okay.
You can use what are called grant commands to give specific users or roles permission to access a schema,
Okay.
and you can use revoke commands to take away those permissions.
So very granular, like you were saying.
Very granular.
Yeah.
You can even control the specific actions they can perform within a schema. Like, can they select data? Can they insert data? Can they update? Can they delete?
Oh my gosh. So many options.
It's really powerful.
But like with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
So what are some best practices for managing schemas effectively? Like what should people keep in mind?
First one is don't just dump everything into the public schema.
Okay, so we're back to that public schema.
Back to the public schema. Avoid it if you can.
Okay.
Create dedicated schemas for different purposes, like we talked about earlier.
Right. Customers, products, orders, all that stuff.
Exactly. Keep things organized, keep things separated.
Makes sense.
But at the same time, don't go overboard with creating too many schemas.
Okay.
Don't create a schema for every single table.
All right, so find a good balance.
Find a balance that works for you.
Yeah.
Another really important best practice is to regularly review your permissions.
Okay, yeah, because I bet things change over time.
Things change. People's roles change.
Right.
You want to make sure that you haven't accidentally given someone too much access.
Right.
Or that you haven't left any security loopholes open.
So it's like an ongoing process.
It is. It's not a one-time thing.
Gotcha.
And then finally, don't be afraid to clean up unused schemas.
Ok.
If you've got a schema that's just sitting there empty.
Yeah, just taking up space.
Taking up space. Get rid of it.
Digital clutter.
Digital clutter. Exactly. Keep your database nice and tidy.
I love that. So schemas are like digital organizers, security guards, and efficiency experts all rolled into one.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But here's a question for all of you out there listening. How could you apply this concept of schemas to your own work or projects?
Yeah.
Well, it's a powerful tool. And understanding how to use it effectively can make a real difference in how you manage and secure your data.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you all next time.